This next presentation deals with reconnecting people. During the pandemic, I wrote a book called Ramp. In Ramp, if you think about the definition of a ramp, when somebody gets off the highway, and they go on the side streets and get off the highway. In order to get back on the highway, they need a ramp. So I appreciate the fact that your ministerial team purchased the books, and you can take one home. And there's a couple other books there that have to do with evangelism, and also one that's Bible study. So I'm going to talk to you in this presentation about reconnecting. This is my family. This is my wife. This is my daughter, biological daughter, and this is my son. And this is they're married, which is fantastic, because that's one less bill that I have. Somebody say amen. Although, you know, I tell this story often that when my daughter was 5, I left her by herself in the middle of a thunderstorm because I had to go preach somewhere. And the lights went out. And it was horrible because she was by herself in the house, and my wife couldn't get to her because of a tree had fallen in the middle of the road. And she was there for an hour and a half underneath the bed crying hysterically because I had to do ministry stuff, right? And she's never forgotten that. And even now that she's married, she's like, "Can I have some money to go to the mall and stuff, Dad?" And I'm like, "You're married, you know, go ask your husband." And she's like, "You remember when I was 5? So, this is, and Yesenia and Daisy are 2 daughters that we adopted. They came into our house. So as a house that was 2 became 4. And as parents, our personal goal in life, our highest priority is to make it to heaven with our kids, okay? So when I talk about reconnecting, I don't want you to think about numbers. I want you to think about people, right? These are sons and daughters. These are real people. These are some of your sons and daughters and family members that used to attend church and no longer attend church. I was doing an investigation on reconnecting materials because after the pandemic, according to Barna, 20% of your regular attendees are not coming back to the building. These are not people that used to come out once in a while. These are committed volunteers. 20% are not coming back in the building. So I was looking for reconnecting materials in Advent stores and different places, and you can find lots of materials and resources on how to bring people in, but there are very few things that you can find on how to bring people back. Okay, it's not in our DNA. So I want to share with you some bad news and then some good news. All right. According to Barna, these are by generation people who stopped attending church during the pandemic, and you see that boomers, Gen X. This is my generation. Any other Gen X's in the building? We rule the world, right? Yes. We're cool. We're like millennials. And any millennials in there? Yeah. Millennials. And who here are boomers? Who are boomers? It's like, do I even have to say my age? And the younger they are, the less they engage online, which is odd because You would think that a generation that is always online and that filters reality through a screen, not the other way around, would attend church less. And as we started to open up, we've seen, I don't know how it is here in Northern California, but the parts of the world where I am from, the hardest generation to re-engage has been a younger generation. So this is kind of troubling. And then in our own denomination, right, we have a retention problem. Since 1965, 41,225,000 people have become members of the church. Of those, 16,804,000 have chosen to leave. So our net loss rate since 1965 is 41%. Okay? That means 4 out of 10. I would ask you, what other area of life is that acceptable? Would you eat at a restaurant that 4 out of 10 meals give you diarrhea? Would you go to a mechanic where 4 out of 10 cars he would mess up forever? Would you get in planes or airlines that 4 out of 10 planes fell down from the sky all the time? Would you go see a doctor that 4 out of 10 patients die in the operating table? We don't accept that ratio in any other area, but it seems like people slip out. I think 61% is the number of people who left the church said, no one ever contacted me when I left. Okay? So 41% is the number. And in that 41%, once again, I don't want you to think about just 41%. I don't want you to think about 16,804,656, but I want about the ones that you know. Like, what would it take for them to reconnect with the local congregation? I'm going to share a stat. This is from the North American Division, and about perceptions of the church when they left. And there is one in particular of these reasons that for me is heartbreaking and completely fixable. Like, we can fix this today. All right? So I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but I just trust that I'm telling you the truth. What do you think of the Adventist Church at the time you left it? This is not worldwide now. This is North American Adventist. 17%, it had just become irrelevant to my life. This is consistent with the Barna study that they did in our denomination, that young adults especially had a difficult time making the connection between their occupation and their ministry, right? Because in church, when we say, John or Mary, they were called by God, we usually think of, they were called by God. Of course, they were going to be pastors, right? They were called by God. But nurses are called by God, and carpenters are called by God, and people who own businesses are called by God. But we've had a little bit of a problem connecting what you do for a living with your spiritual walk. So 17% have become irrelevant to my life. 19% said I was angry over the way it treated me. That's 1 out of 5. These people right here are the loudest on social media. These are the people who if you're not careful, you think that everybody who left the church feels like this. And that people that leave the church is because somebody mistreated them, and somebody hurt them, and somebody treated them wrong. This is 1 out of 5. It's a significant percentage, but it's not 100%. It's 1 out of 5. 16% says, I felt that it was cold and inflexible. These are things, these are not hard things to fix. My wife was traveling with her sister and my daughter from Virginia to Oregon in a 18-foot U-Haul. Traveling across the country, they were moving my sister-in-law. She was moving in with us. And they mapped it out. It was going to be 7 days. They were going to stop at different places. And they mapped out when they were going to spend Sabbath. And they showed up at a church, large church, 300-member church. And they showed up because they thought to themselves, this is a large congregation. The possibilities that we can get some potluck are going to be higher in this congregation. So they showed up with an 18-foot U-Haul with a car in tow. There is nothing that says more clearly, I am not from here, that driving into a parking lot with an 18-foot U-Haul and a car in tow. They showed up, they were greeted at the door, and that was the last time anybody else talked to them. People sang, they worshiped, they gave, and then it was over, and they were sitting around thinking like maybe somebody will invite me to go out to eat. See, and nobody did. The problem is not that we're not friendly. The problem is that we're friendly with ourselves. I felt that it was cold and inflexible. 8%, I felt that it lacked integrity in its behavior or theology. This is where there's no congruence between what you say and what you live. This is what we believe, but our lives demonstrate something else. Coming back here and become irrelevant to my life. Here's the problem. I heard somebody say this, and it always stuck with me. When church is boring and irrelevant, people don't think that church is boring and irrelevant. They think that God is. So this is important. This is the one that's heartbreaking for me. Right? This is the one that I was like, man, this is 2022, we're still dealing with this. I thought highly of it. So it starts good. But, everybody say but. But, I felt that I could not live up to its standards. What does that tell you? Let's talk for a little bit. You know, it's almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's talk for a minute. What does this one tell you? Anybody have opinions? Right there from where you are. Just what's the first thing when you see this statistic?
Standards are more important than people.
Standards are more important than people? Huh? It's not a gospel-centric. Right? What's heartbreaking for me is the combination of those two things. It's like, I want to be here, but I don't think I can. So what message are they receiving that makes them believe that? Because you control the pulpit. And we assume that people understand the gospel, and they don't. Because when you say the gospel, whatever you say, people make all their own assumptions about what it is that you're trying to say. We are using the same vocabulary, but different dictionaries. We have to clarify and emphasize what the gospel is. If your sermon, whatever topic you're preaching, if it's prophecy or whatever Bible passage you're preaching from. Old Testament, New Testament, doctrinal subjects, personal life, whatever it is that you're preaching, if it always has to end on the cross. If the gospel is not clearly presented, throw your sermon in the trash, because it is trash. I had a conversation with my son-in-law. He attended a church, and him and my daughter they attended the church. I was like, "How was church today?" And he said something very convicting to me. I was like, "Oh man, that's He said everything was good. There's nice music, the people were friendly enough. But then he said something very convicting. He said, if somebody has shown up to church here for the first time, they would have left without knowing who Jesus was." See, I get this because I'm a pastor's kid. And I understood the gospel when I was 24. I could recite the eschatological timeline. I can tell you all the 66 books of the Bible. I was informed but not converted. I knew the stuff, but I did not know the Jesus of the stuff. Right? And this was my feeling. This was me. That's why from the age of 17 to the age of 24, I was disconnected from church. Because I love church. I enjoy going to church. I sang in a group. I like church. But at some point in my life, I felt to myself, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. So I'm not enjoying church, and I'm not enjoying the world. So if the odds that I'm saved are not good, I might as well sin and enjoy sinning. But the devil overpromises and underdelivers. And the emptiness that I felt when I was far from God led me to come back. But this is my life. It's all about dress, diet, and drums. It's all about, this is the stuff that you need to do. God is not somebody you appease. And the gospel is not just good counsel. He's not your life coach. He's not the rule maker. Jesus is a personal savior. And he comes into your life. And the gospel is not God. It's not that God takes a bad person and makes him good. That's moralistic theology. This is not the gospel, that God takes a bad person and makes him good. The gospel is that God takes a dead person and makes him alive. That's the gospel. I cannot do anything for myself. All I can do is think. And Jesus came down. And once I got the gospel, it was like, oh my goodness. This is awesome. The Sabbath became better. The doctrines became better. The Bible became better. My walk with God became better. I became holier as I understood more of the gospel. I grew up with a God that I knew he loved me, but he didn't like me very much. The image I had of God is like this. Man, you disappointed me again. What is wrong with you? And I was taught a transactional religion. You behave good enough, you're going to be saved, so God can save you. And that creates two things. Number one, it creates Pharisees, or it creates ex-Adventists. This right here. And you can fix that now. Every message you preach, Jesus has to be the center. No matter what topic it is. Jesus is the center of every message. Ask yourself, same thing that Isaac told Abraham. Dad, where is the lamb? Where is the lamb in this message? Where is the lamb? Then the last one here, I thought highly of it, but I lost touch. There are people that moved, couldn't find a new church in their local area, and they just lost touch. But lots of people saying, hey, I thought highly of it. So, what do? We reconnect. And by the way, I'm going to send all my PowerPoint presentations to a ministerial director so he can share it with you guys. So that way you don't have to take pictures, and you can take pictures of your kids instead. All right? This is a rent. If somebody was driving from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Loma Linda, a caravan of 100 cars, 41 cars would not make the end of the trip. So, why is it that we're not intentional about reconnecting? And this might not apply to you, but just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. I think there's 5 reasons. Number 1, reconnecting is hard. It's hard. Some people have gone through stuff. It's hard listening to stories of stuff that has happened in people's lives. It's hard trying to find them. It's hard for you to listen. It's hard for you to connect with them. It's hard for you to have them to trust you. It takes a long time. Reconnecting with people is hard. Number 2, it messes with our ego. Because when you have a congregation that has a membership in the books of 450, but only 100 attend, when you start digging through why is it that 350 are not attending my congregation, it starts messing with your ego. It can start messing with your ego. It's like, why have these people left? And where have they gone? Especially if they express their displeasure with your ministry. It's like, you might as well let's just concentrate on the new people. Let's just don't worry about these people that have left. It messes with our egos. There are some churches that don't want to do it because it messes with their ego. Because they have an inflated sense of who they are. Number 3, some people we don't want to come back. And I just want to be very clear. We want to reconnect people, but we don't want to reconnect everybody. There are some people that bless your church by their departure. And sometimes you win by losing. So some of them you don't want back. Somebody has not demonstrated an attitude of repentance, especially somebody who has been very divisive and destructive, probably not conducive for them to coming back. Number 4 is in our DNA. Once again, look at any type of, you go to an ABC, look at an ABC, look at any type of resource, and you're going to see lots of ministries that are front door ministries. And we need to have front door ministries. We want to reach the world for Jesus. But also, we don't want to forget about the people who have disconnected. You know, when the Bible talks about looking for the one who left and there's joy in heaven, it doesn't mean that God is not rejoiced with the ones who are in the 99, but he rejoices for the one who has come back, and it's intentional, right? There's a lost art, and I'm going to mess with some of you now. This is lost art of visitation, where sometimes pastors, they believe it's just about projecting from the pulpit and come see me in my office. I believe in personal visitation. I believe in getting messy with the people and knowing what's going on. I can't preach effectively until I smell like sheep. I'm in the pen. I understand what's happening in their life. I can't be detached from my congregation. I need to be connected with them. It's not in our DNA. And number 5, it's easier to point the finger than to pursue them. Yeah, it's because, you know what's heartbreaking to me is hearing conversations. Right now, we have this cohort of churches that we're working through this book, and they're doing a sermon series, and they're doing a reconnecting committee, and we're tracking the effectiveness of the resource, right? Because I wrote it, and I was like, does this work? So we're trying that now, see if it works or not. And some of the conversations with the board is like, yeah, the people leave because they're just not committed to the truth, and they're, you know, when they first came into the church, they weren't evangelized correctly, and they weren't indoctrinated correctly. You're going to see in a little bit, I'm going to show you a slide that disproves the reason why people leave the church. Stop saying it because it's not true. is not because they were not indoctrinated correctly when they first came in. That's not the main reason. So they leave, and then we blame them because they left. All right? So, what do? RAMP stands for research, avoid, meet, and prepare. So we're going to go through a couple of them this afternoon, and then tomorrow we're going to go through the other one. The first one is research. I need to know the reality. What is. Not what I wish it was. I wish I had more hair. But what is. You have to live in reality. And the first job of a leader is to define reality. Why do we say, have you noticed pastors' conversations? How much do you have in attendance? How big is your church? Yeah, we have 1,000. They don't say this. There are only 100 attending. I need to know where these people are. What happened to them? What's the reason from the other 6 different reasons that they gave? Did they leave because there was a fallout? Did they leave because they moved? Are they dead? Where are they? One thing that I would like for you guys to promise me tonight is this. Let's make a solemn commitment. Never say again, these are people who disconnected. These are people who are lost. We call them non-attending members. When you use other types of wording to describe them, these are non-attending members. The prodigal son was still a son, even though he was in a far country. So you have to ask yourself, where are they? We call them missing members. You ever heard that? They're missing members. In 2022, nobody is missing. If you don't believe it, owe some money to somebody. Stop paying your car. See if you're missing. Nobody is missing. These are non-attending members. Nobody is missing. We can use People Finder. We can use different resources. We can use social media. We can use the Adventist. Nobody is missing. Now, every year we have an evangelism conference in our union called EC3. And Alan Parker, who's a professor in Southern, did a study with 700 people, ex-members, not missing members, but non-attending members. And this is what he found, which is very interesting. I want to share this thing because this is brand new. It's a brand new research that takes into consideration the pandemic, okay? Here you go. There were 712 responses. These are the ages of the people who responded. Okay, the largest percentage was 25 to 44. This is the largest percentage right here. These are people who used to attend but don't anymore. Okay? And here's the proof that this concept of they left because they were not explained the beliefs when they first came in is false. These are people who stopped attending, okay? 87% of people who stopped attending had attended for more than 15 years. These are not people who we just baptize and then 6 months later they stop attending. These are people that have been attending for over 15 years. Why do people leave the church? If you were to put these in order, which one would you say, when we ask this new group, especially that is skewed towards younger, which one do you think is the first one? Which one of these? What's the number one reason? Because the North American division did a survey, and they said, in general, people have a high view or a positive view of the church and our beliefs, right? They just, felt judged and didn't want to, they moved somewhere else, or life got in the way, or they just become irrelevant. So which one is number one here? This is new thing that we're seeing now, where people are saying, I don't know. And these are people that have attended for 15 years. There can be a myriad of explanations for this. My personal belief, as an evangelist who does 10 to 12 evangelistic series, sometimes 13 in a year, is that sometimes we have failed, and I'm including myself, we have failed to connect Christ with our beliefs. Because Jesus and the gospel is presented as one of the nights. And Jesus, I've heard people tell me, Jesus, everybody's preaching Jesus. We have to preach present truth. First of all, that's close to blasphemy. There is no more present truth than Jesus, right? In every single thing that whatever doctrine that we preach in, Jesus has to be the center. It's not Jesus and the doctrines, it's Jesus in the doctrines. In the center of everything, this connection, there has been this disconnection between this is the stuff that we believe, and then there's Jesus over here. And these are two separate things. And they're not. They're not. Number two, hypocrisy. It's hard for them to hear something. It's like we have a big mouth and invisible hands. That we care about the world and we care about people, but the people in our own backyard, in our congregation, we're not active in justice in our communities. 85% of millennials said that social justice was a high value for them. If you're not connecting the giving in your church to what you're doing in the community, for example, people get up, I hear this all the time, it's time now for tithes and offerings. This is a part of the service where we can all participate. You ever heard that? This is a part of the service, like, and what were we supposed to do in the other part of the service? We shouldn't participate in the other parts of the service? This is the only part of the service we can participate. First of all, that's weird. This is the part of the service that we can all participate. And what you give today keeps the lights on. And you feel comfortable today in the pew. That's why your tithes and offerings. Especially for that generation, they're thinking, okay, I want to see how my money is impacting real life people. So I want to talk about stories when I do my tithes and offerings. I want to talk about what my